Daily Tech News Show is made possible by you, the listener. Thanks to all of you, including Norm Fazekas, Chris Allen, and Chris Smith, plus our brand new patrons. We got 4 of them today, folks. X, Dave, Kyle, and Damon. Yay! On this episode of DTNS, NIST says to stop making people do complicated things for passwords. Gmail gets smarter reply suggestions. And Jason Howell joins us to report on the new Google TV streamer. This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, September 27th, 2024. In Los Angeles, I'm Tom Merritt.
From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
Drawing the top tech stories from Cleveland, I'm Len Peralta.
I'm Jason Howell, the other tech titan in Petaluma.
I'm nowhere near Petaluma, but I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
Oh, Jason Howell, it's great to have you. Thank you for being here.
What's up? Thank you for the invite. I always love to do it.
What is going on? Listen, folks, we're going to have a wonderful show, so just sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight. We start with the quick hits.
The Irish Data Protection Commission, or DPC, has fined Meta $101.5 million for violating GDPR rules by storing passwords in plain text. The fine comes after the conclusion of an investigation into a 2019 security breach, which showed as much as 600 million passwords were stored in easily readable plain text, dating back to 2012. The DPC also found that Meta failed to properly notify the Commission of the breach and did not properly document personal data breaches relating to the storage of passwords in plain text. Meta was also found to have violated GDPR by not implementing adequate technical measures to protect users' passwords from unauthorized access.
Of course, Reuters reported Thursday that Sam Altman might get a 7% stake in a newly organized OpenAI that would have uncapped profits and be a public benefits company. We talked about that here. Well, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman told employees at an all-hands meeting, quote, "There are no current plans to give him a stake in OpenAI." At an interview during Italian Tech Week, he said regarding reports that OpenAI was considering reorganizing into a for-profit public benefit company, quote, "Most of the stuff I saw was also just totally wrong."
But was it all wrong?
So you're saying there's a chance.
Following a number of disappointing box office performances for several big budget films, including Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon and Fly Me to the Moon, Apple's Hollywood studio is refocusing their movie release strategy. Instead of theater premieres, they'll be releasing them on Apple TV+. Big surprise. Plans to release Wolves. That's an action comedy starring George Clooney and Brad Pitt, 2 very, very big Hollywood stars, in theaters globally has been canceled and replaced with a limited run in a small number of venues before releasing on Apple TV Plus on Friday.
Bloomberg sources say ARM, the chip designers, made a high-level inquiry about buying Intel's product unit. If you don't know Intel's product unit, it's the part of the company that sells the chips. The ones inside your PC or maybe your server and stuff. That would have left Intel with its foundry business, the part that makes the chips. Intel turned down that offer, saying that the division is not for sale yet.
iFixit has published the results of its teardown of the iPhone 16 Pro models. Those are the newest ones. The Pro models batteries have an enclosure to prevent you from accidentally puncturing the battery while conducting repairs. The biggest news from the teardown is that the 16 Pro has dual entry, meaning you don't need to remove the screen for all repairs. And as long as you're using OEM parts, you can swap them out freely without worrying about Activision locks. iFixit gives the iPhone 16 Pro models a 7 out of 10 for repairability, up significantly from the 15 Pro's 4 out of 10.
Ooh, look at Apple go. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, sets technology standards for the U.S. government, and therefore anybody who wants to do business with the U.S. government, and therefore actually has some influence on standards in the entire country and sometimes beyond. NIST just released its second public draft of a revision of the digital identity guidelines. These are the things that NIST says, we'd like you to do this. You have to do this regarding security. Now, it is a large, sprawling, mostly incomprehensible to most people piece of documentation, but in there, it proposes barring the following practices. Mandatory resets. You know, that thing where every 3 months they're like, you need to change your password. You've had the same one for 3 months now. You can't do that if you want to play ball with NIST. Required or restricted use of certain characters, like special characters, and the use of security questions. The what street did you grow up with? Okay, great. We'll let you into your account now kind of questions. I love this because none of these are good practices. They're all annoying to the end user, and they don't actually increase security.
I mean, isn't all security levels to a certain degree annoying because they put a barrier between you and the thing that you want to do?
Correct.
But I would agree. A lot of these, the thing is, we've been doing a lot of this stuff for years, decades, actually. Like, what was your first pet? That is a question that I feel like has been part of the kind of security, protocol for so very long. And every time I do it, I'm like, I'm a podcaster. I'm pretty sure at some point along the line, I've probably mentioned some of this stuff that they're asking me to use.
It's eminently phishable even if you're not a podcaster.
Well,
right?
Right. It's like, first pet, or what was the name of your, where you went to kindergarten.
Yeah,
or,
right.
What was the color of your
teacher?
first house?
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. You're sort of like, well, nobody would really know that, but that's all stuff that is phishable.
It's not only phishable, it's also guessable. Like, you could brute force attack that stuff. I think about this every time one of these comes up and they make me do it, which is, okay, you just made me choose an exclamation point, a capital letter, and have a 16 thing long password. But anybody who can brute force a dictionary word is allowed into my account with this security recovery. My tip to people is don't answer them accurately. It takes a little more record keeping, but use a long, secure password to answer what was your first pet. It's not guessable. You'll have to remember it. True. But that way you're not leaving your account insecure. I like that NIST is saying, don't do that.
Your kindergarten friend who's like, I know the answer. She will not be able to brute force your
that person.
I think one here that might surprise people is choosing special characters not being allowed, because that sounds like it would be like, oh, doesn't that make the password more secure? Turns out if the password is sufficiently long and random is the key there, it doesn't. Special characters offer no benefit over other characters. And requiring them actually weakens the passwords because of human behavior. Because humans don't do random, usually what happens, everybody uses an exclamation point. And so it becomes easier to crack your password because you just look for exclamation points and you get rid of all the special characters. If they're truly random and long, then it's very difficult to guess whether there's a special character in there or not.
I actually had to reset a password recently. I don't remember if it was for a bank account or something else, but I was using LastPass. Just like give me a password. Don't even want to know what it is, and then I'll save it, and that's what I'll use going forward. And it was like, no, you're using certain alpha.
Right. Sometimes they don't let you use the special character.
Where I was just like, all right, keep going. And like,
Bingo.
Finally it worked, where I was just like, oh man, it's like I was giving you the best password possible and you were like, too secure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Too secure.
Yeah. It gets super good. Yes, the password managers have helped. They've certainly helped my password kind of health over the last decade, let's say, since I've been using them. But still, I encounter those sites where, like you're talking about the rules, right, that you were talking about there, Tom. And it's almost like I can't put in the rules into the password manager because they're all different.
They're always
and so
different.
I do have to do that dance where it's like 5 different back and forths before I finally kind of find the one that works. It's frustrating.
The proposal also requires a minimum password length of 8, but suggests it should be 15. You have to have 8 to do business with us, but it should be 15. And they say don't
seems
set a maximum length. And if you do set a maximum length, it has to be 64 or larger. But they're like, there's no reason to stop people from putting in characters because people won't put in so many characters that it'll overflow your database. I guess malicious actors might. So maybe there's, a maximum of 100 or something. But these are good standards. And it makes me wish for the day that passkeys become so widely acceptable they are easy because they don't make you think about anything. They just once they are widely adopted, they'll just be stored on your device. We're not there yet, though. Listen to recent Android
Faithful.
Think about
something.
Yeah. But they don't make you think as much as this, right?
Well, I mean, to a certain degree, I mean, yes, this kind of stinks.
The
when
passkey
I'm
is the password. You don't have to think about what's in it. It's just a matter of where it is.
Depends on the device I'm using, though. Sometimes it's just really unclear, like exactly the right way. And then when I go through the process with the passkey, it still says, "Oh, well, that didn't work. What do you want to do now?" I'm like, "Well, I guess I'll just use the password."
No, that's the implementation. What I'm saying is the passkey. You don't have to come up with the passkey.
No,
right?
That's true. I understand where you're coming from.
And
you just can't lose the passkey.
Yeah.
If you lose it, that's
you need to have other account recovery options for a while. But eventually this will all work itself out because it has all the same disadvantages of the passwords except for it's not phishable and you don't have to worry about coming up with it parts. So, I think it'll get there. I have faith. I also have faith that I will no longer have to think about what goes into an email now, Sarah.
Yeah. So Google, if you use Gmail, which many of us do, introduced smart replies in Gmail. This is powered by Gemini, large language models stuff. Unlike previous versions of what Gemini would do for Gmail, these new smart replies are designed to consider the full context of the email conversation and with effort to sound more personal, of course. The updated options are available to users with a Gemini Business, Enterprise, Education, or Education Premium add-on, or a Google One AI Premium subscription. I have none of these things currently. So this is not something that I can take advantage of. However, more and more of my friends say, "Oh yeah, I mean, just to kind of like fire off an email and have the AI clean it up and send it to the team." Awesome. I don't know, Jason. How much are you using this?
Well, so I do have a Google One AI premium subscription. I checked this morning for this feature, and Google even said this is rolling out over the course of the next 14 days. I have the right things marked, but it's still not appearing to see. I mean, have I used smart replies before? Absolutely. The real short hits, like when I'm in a hurry and I just need to throw a quick confirmation and I don't want it to just be yes or whatever. I might hit the 4-word version of yes. And that's fine. Yeah, exactly. Like I don't want to come off curt, but I don't have a lot of time to do much more, so I'll use it. When it gets to writing an entire email, there's going to be very specific circumstances that I feel comfortable doing that. And it's almost like if I'm in a personal kind of relationship with someone, I would feel weird constructing an email and sending it to that person. And that person might never know. But for me as a human, like it's hard for me to remove myself from that experience.
Let's say you sent that to me. Maybe I do know, like Jason was in a hurry. I get it. That's not really his voice, but like it kind of sucks.
It doesn't serve the purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the flip side, right? Like getting that message, especially if you can kind of pick up on the fact that it might have been generated, it does have that sting of a lack of authenticity or genuineness
right,
to
like
it.
I
That might give you
wasn't
an impression
worth
of that
his
person.
time.
At the same time, on the flip side, sometimes communication just that stuff doesn't matter as much as did it get the point across. And to that perspective, that's where I start to think there might be certain circumstances that I would use this when it matters less about that kind of personality perspective.
Yeah.
And I just want to get the point across. Fine.
It's very contextual, right?
Yeah.
It's like maybe you talk to a team where, people just need to know like when and where. You don't need to, be like personality driven type thing.
Sure.
And then there are other notes where, and I get this already sometimes with some, AI prompts where it's like, works or thanks.
Sounds
or,
great.
Sounds good. Yeah, where I'm like,
This is great. Thank you.
all of those things sound very flippant.
Yeah,
If I were really to, actually use that to send. But if it was something that could more or less, understand my cadence over time,
That's important.
I hadn't thought
that's
about
part
it.
of it.
But Sarah, you're absolutely right. I could see. I have been thinking I'm not going to use this, but I could see using it if somebody's like, "Hey, did you book the flight?" And Gemini suggests like, I will respond with, yes, here are the flight numbers, times, and everything. And I don't need to be clever about that. And
Totally.
punch it up with some dialogue. Yeah. I just need the flight times. I'm like, oh, if it can accurately do all that and all I have to do is press a button, that will be pretty handy. I will grant
useful.
you that. Yeah.
Yeah, it does kind of make me wonder about how, people, if something like the scenario that you described, Tom, works really well, it's like, how much will we actually be talking to each other? But maybe the point is we'll talk to each other when we really have to.
Yeah. And maybe we'll have more brain power to say what we mean to say instead of just being exhausted from having to type out all those flight times, 10 minutes ago.
And that is, I think, also a part of this is that, so often we're communicating on mobile. Let's say mobile is the prime example in my life where I hate typing out a long answer or a long email or whatever with my, with the tiny little screen. Mm-hmm. I do it because that's just the paradigm when I'm out somewhere and I need to respond to an email. So from that perspective, great. If you can save me a little bit of that in certain circumstances. And I think, Sarah, your point is super on point as far as being in my voice, being in my cadence. And hopefully these things, by having the attention on the entire thread, hopefully over time, they can begin to get to the point to where it's like, oh, I totally would have written that. Okay, fine. Yeah. That is me. Like if I had written it, it would have said basically the same thing. So I feel comfortable hitting send.
Yeah, and then we get to the point where it's like, when is the conversation personal enough that this is not, let's not do that. It's pretty good for work stuff, but I'm talking to my, Aunt Martha, and she really needs to hear my voice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, we don't mind if you use a large language model of your choice to write something on our subreddit. We just want to hear what you want to hear us talk about. So get those links over there. Vote on the links other people have submitted at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. On Tuesday, Google's Chromecast replacement. Goodbye, Chromecast. Hello, Google TV Streamer was released. Jason's been using it since it came out. He's got a review ready to go and lined up. So he's going to share some of his insights with us today. How's it stacking up to other streaming devices in the market? And for those who are like, oh, I guess I'm switching from Chromecast now?
Yeah, I know. It's interesting that Google is moving away from the Chromecast thing because as far as its hardware division is concerned, Chromecast could be one of its most successful hardware efforts. It lasted for I think over a decade at this point, if I'm not mistaken. It was popular because it was inexpensive. You could hide it away. It's very easy to cast from your phone to the TV, and like the streamer, which I happen to have right here. Does all of those things. It's basically the next generation. The device that this is really an upgrade from is the Chromecast with with Google TV 4K. That is a device that I did not have for review, so I can't compare it side by side. But that one did come with a remote. As you can see, the Google TV streamer comes with a remote. I have to say, I put in the notes, it's slippery. And in the pre-show, we were all talking about how all remotes are slippery. And I was trying to think well, what is the difference? Why does it matter that this thing is slippery when all remotes are? And I think it's also the size. It's very ergonomic, but it's just so easy to kind of fall out of your hand. In one case, I also had this slide out of my daughter's attention. So maybe that's her fault and not the remote's fault, and into the couch, and which is fine because there's a button on the back of the device that you can hit to do a Find My Remote feature. So that's great.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Yeah. It's pretty loud.
Yeah, it's not
although
bad.
if it's
You're
covered
gonna
up
hear
with
it. You're gonna find that remote.
Did you find out if it's
covered up with a
adjustable?
cushion.
Can you change the volume of that?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
I hope so, because I have heard from some people that when it's tucked away in a cushion, it's still not quite loud enough to get out. But we did not have that experience. It also happened to get caught in the gears of the recliner, and so it got a little chunked up, which is
but it still
unfortunate.
Works.
But
That's
you know
good.
what? Hey, that happened within like a day of using it, which is honestly, with my history with hardware, pretty much a fact of life. Excuse me, as far as the streamer OS is concerned, this is what it is. This is Google TV as it stands right now. And, Google's big story about this is, it's got Gemini, it's got generative screensaver, so generative art screensaver, and you can install that. I think my one takeaway with, just to summarize real quick, my takeaway on the OS itself is that things look really nice. It's big. It's, there's the carousels. There's all this, it's very visual and very modern looking, but it is so noisy.
This feels like my WebOS, situation currently with my LG TV. I mean, it noisy, I'm not sure. It's all kind of noisy, right?
I guess so, but I guess what I mean by that is that when you're thumbing through the interface, I want the interface to kind of help me find the stuff that I have access to. And what it does is, yes, it presents some of that stuff, but it also presents a bunch of stuff that, from apps that you don't have installed. It's just, there's so much all over the place that, like, sitting down to use that interface to make it easier for me to pick, I don't find that. I still end up going the typical route of just opening the app and finding the thing manually versus using the home screen as like a great recommendation engine. There's just so much everywhere. Yeah. It's really hard to know where to put your focus and your attention.
One of the cool things that Google TV's new version of the OS, which is, kind of the feature, it's not exclusive to the streamer, but this is its best home, is the home panel for Google Home stuff. How did you find that?
Oh, that's probably one of my favorite features, actually. Here, and I can actually show that if I'll show you.
Don't dox yourself.
So first of all, that's a good point, but I don't think I have any problem with that. On the remote is this little star button. This is a multifunction button, so you can program it to launch an app. You can program it to turn to switch the input on your TV set, or you can turn it to summon the home app, which, let me see here. Let me make sure I'm in the right place here. And if I hit that, it pulls up my home panel, and it's basically all of my smart home controls on the side, which I absolutely love. I'm not going to hit this because then my studio lights will go out. But just having it right there is really useful, even though you can get to this stuff on your phone pretty easily. And that's, what you would probably normally do. Or we've got Hue switch on the wall that we could tap. But having it right there, if I just really want to bring down the lights in the living room while I'm watching TV, it's the tap of a button. And that's one of my favorite features for sure.
What about the Google Assistant stuff, the Gemini stuff you talk to?
That is a little confusing.
Is it any better?
It's okay. So the assistant stuff is the way it always was. I'm trying to actually find it because there used to be a little
Can you just hit the mic on the remote and just talk to it?
Yeah, I can. Hey, what movies was Drew Barrymore in?
Which is exactly how I would ask that, for sure. Yeah.
I
don't know how to talk.
I'll tell you.
Google, that happens to be all the time with voice assistants.
Google might be better at this, but that has been a real hit and miss with me for other situations.
Yeah, so I think what's confusing to me about the integration here is Assistant is there the way it normally is and has been. But Google's talking up Gemini. And so I think when I first launched it, I was like, oh, so this interaction is going to be a little different. It's going to be better. Turns out Gemini is not actually doing any of that. Assistant is doing the voice interaction. Gemini is just offering like summaries and insight into plot summaries and that sort of stuff on a select group of content, kind of the most popular content across all streaming services. You almost have to like look hard to find it. So I'm not going to do it now. That would be a total tangent for me. I'd have a hard time finding it. But, just a little confusing. Also, interacting with the assistant even on the little carousel that it gave me, I'm trying to remember, one of the examples was, oh, show me free movies. And I did that. And the first example it came back with was Inside Out 2. And I'm like,
That one ain't
no,
free.
that just came out on rental.
Pretty sure
I'm
that's not
pretty
free.
certain you're not going to get that for free. You know, another one was, what year was Alien released? And I hit that, and all that came back was a YouTube row with a bunch of videos about Alien, the movie.
Oh.
And so it's like, all right, well, how helpful is that? Because you didn't even solve my problem, even though that's the question you wanted me to ask this feature to show it off. It's very strange.
Yeah.
Overall, like, to wrap it up, do you like it?
I mean, it might sound like I'm very negative on this device. I actually do enjoy it. It's just some of these things I think need to get worked out. The generative AI screensaver sounds gimmicky, and it kind of is, but I will tell you something. If you have kids, they're going to love it. It's a lot of fun to sit down with them and just be like, well, what do you want to create? And you're doing it up on the TV set. That's really cool. It is $99. It's almost $100. It has better internals than the previous versions of the Chromecast, so you do get an upgrade in the hardware. Overall, I like it, but I totally see room for improvement. And the good news is probably a lot of that could come through a software update. So I hope it does.
Very cool. Yeah. It doesn't seem like a bad streamer. I've got one on the way, so I'm looking forward to trying it out as well. Thank you, Jason. When is your full review going up?
I'm working on it pretty hard right now. I'm hoping early next week I'll have it up on the TechSploder YouTube channel.
Fantastic. All right, let's check out the mailbag.
Let's do it. Kenny sent us a message which says, I like the fact that Meta is going to integrate Be My Eyes as a volunteer into the glasses that will help blind and low vision people be hands-free while using the service. This seems to have struck a chord with some folks. Kenny says they'll still have to be connected to a phone, and the app is on Android and iOS, and they don't have to wait with a phone around anymore and possibly drop it or get stolen. So that's where this is going to be more optimal. Kenny says, don't forget, on the Ray-Ban mini glasses, there's a little screen on the inside left lens that shows you notifications.
Thank you, Kenny, for the extra insight on that. Really appreciate it. Also, thank you, Len Peralta, who has been illustrating today's show. Len, what have you drawn for us today?
Well, you know, I went with the password story.
Okay.
Just because that's something I think we can not that anything Jason talked about is nothing we can deal with, but I have a lot of issues with my passwords.
I see.
And this is kind of my look at this. It's like all this to order an orange Julius. Schmenrick 216, Schmenrick 23, you know, it's and then Schmenrick. Yeah, all this to order an orange Julius. It seems like a lot to go
Julius.
through.
That's relatable.
How I messed thee.
Yeah, they're super delicious.
The DQ Orange Julius combo.
They are.
Oh yeah.
I order all the best Orange Julius on my smartphone.
So do I. You know, that says more about me, I think, than anything else. If you're
DoorDash.
interested in that piece, you can go to my Patreon, patreon.com/Len, where you can get that immediately if you back me at the DTNS Lover level, or you can go to my online store. You can just purchase it right there. You get it immediately and hang it up all over the house. You know, it's going to be great. It's going to be a great wallpaper. So I say go for it.
Fantastic.
I say
Thank
go
you,
for
Len.
it too. Jason Howell, such a pleasure to have you on the show today.
you.
Let folks know where you're up to, where you're
I'm
up to, and where
what
they
I'm
can see you.
Well, of course, doing Android Faithful for DTNS with the AF crew. We're having a lot of fun with the show there. The stuff that I'm doing for myself can be found at youtube.com/@TechSploder. Got a new episode of the podcast up with Andy Anatko earlier this week. Like I
Nice.
said, you know, AI Inside. And then I've got the full review of the Google TV streamer coming early next week. So subscribe and you won't miss it.
That's my favorite top line I've seen on YouTube in a while. It's got Sarah, O'Docta, and Andy Anatko all in a
Heck
row.
yeah.
Right there. Yeah.
I mean, trifecta of awesome.
What's not to love? Folks, I feel like I found the new Roomie, the new quotable, you know, the thing where you're like, oh, I know this really like interesting person. You probably never heard of them. They're very quotable. Have you ever heard of Steve Jobs?
No, never.
Yeah, see,
Who is
it's
that?
a find. Well, I'm going to introduce the world to Steve Jobs in my new top 5, where we count down the top 5 things that Steve Jobs has said. Top 5 Steve Jobs quotes. Catch it at Daily Tech News Show on TikTok. DTNS Pix, DTNS PIX on Instagram, and of course at youtube.com/Daily Tech News Show. If you're a patron, we are not done. Stick around for Good Day Internet. It's Friday, and Roger, in Jason's honor, put together a which streaming shows are real and which are fake quiz for us. I cannot wait to play this. Stick around and play along with us, won't you?
Just a reminder, we do the show live Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern. That's 2000 UTC, and you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. We're back on Monday talking about iPhone 16 versus Samsung Galaxy S24 to the death, with Ayaz Akhtar joining us. Talk to you then.
This week's episodes of the Daily Tech News Show were created by the following humans. Host, producer, and writer Tom Merritt. Host, producer, and writer Sarah Lane. Executive producer and booker Roger Chang. Producer, writer, and co-host Rob Dunwood. Video producer Joe Kuntz. Producer at large Anthony Lemos. Spanish language host, writer, and producer Dan Campos. Science correspondent Dr. Nikki Ackermans. Social media producer and moderator Zoe Detterding. Our mods, Beatmaster, W. Scottus1, BioCow, Captain Kipper, Steve Guadarrama, Paul Reese, Matthew J. Stevens, a.k.a. Gadget Virtuoso, and J.D. Galloway. Mod and video hosting by Dan Christensen. Music and art provided by Martin Bell, Dan Luters, Mustafa A., Acast, and Len Peralta. Live art performed by Len Peralta. Acast ad support from Tatiana Matias. Patreon support from Tom McNeil. Contributors for this week's shows include Scott Johnson, Justin Robert Young, and Jason Howell, and our guest this week was Nate Langson. Thanks to all the patrons who make the show possible.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.